Hello, Internet. Welcome to the hairstyle that is going to give me a migraine in about 20 seconds. So along with the dissertation that is still there, still not escaping that, I'm also in the middle of moving. One of the things that I've been moving first, because it's the heaviest, is my entire book collection. When you go through every book you've ever owned, you start to get incredibly nostalgic about the books that you used to love. So for today's video, I'm going to do something a little bit different. So as I was thinking about the emotions that these books made me feel, I thought I want to do a list about the most emotional books I've ever read. But when I think about books that have made me emotional, I think about books that have made me sad. I didn't want an entire video about books that made me sad. I wanted to mix it up a little. So, you know, the movie Inside Out, great movie. And it splits things up into 5 different emotions, and I thought, oh, that's perfect. The one difference is disgust, because I think of disgust in a different way. If I'm disgusted with a book, it's usually angry, and I don't want to do multiple angry things, so I decided to turn disgust into something that is actually disgusting, but I only have one example for that. I'm going to add a 6th emotion for anxiety, and that does go along quite a bit well with fear, but I mean like a book that actually causes like an anxiety attack. So that's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to go through the different emotions and pick a couple of books that have made me feel those lovely emotions. So the first emotion is joy. So I was thinking about the books that make me the happiest. So the first book is my favorite book of all time, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I've talked about that book a lot. Love it. It's so relatable. And there's one line that gets me. Since the whole story is about a kid who doesn't feel accepted finally becoming accepted, there's a line near the end of the book where his teacher says, "I wanted to tell you that you're special because I don't think anybody's ever told you that before." And it's so sweet and so adorable that it makes me cry every single time, but not with like sadness, with like happiness. I love it. The second book under my joy category is my childhood favorite. This is the book I go back to when I, need a little bit of a pick-me-up. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. First read Alice in Wonderland when I was 8 years old, and I promptly read it like 9 times in a row. It's a short book. Alice in Wonderland is a great book, and there's just something excellent about reading something completely and utterly silly. Second emotion is sadness. This is the sort of emotion that I would expect to be making this video about. To talk about books that have made me sad. Only one book has ever made me cry, and that's Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I already mentioned, but these next 2 books kind of did. So the first book that I'm putting under sadness is A Monster Calls. I love this book. It's really sweet, it's really emotional, and it's got just such this lovely message, but it's about a boy whose mum is dying of cancer. It's a sad book. Also really lovely, and I would have cried had I not been in the car with my family while my siblings were, screaming and laughing and playing games around me. It kind of ruins the mood when that happens. You don't really get to cry. The other book I'm putting under sadness is a book that did make me cry, but I can't count it as a book that made me cry because I listened to it as a book on tape. I didn't read it. And the reason that's a difference is because I can cry at books on tape because it's like a film, but for some reason I don't cry when I'm reading, because when I'm looking at words, the tears like disrupt me, so I just don't cry when I read. I don't know why, I just don't. It's the first book to ever make me cry in any capacity, and I will remember it forever, and that is The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. Oh my god. As it's set in Nazi Germany, it's not the nicest story, and it definitely made me cry, but it's worth it. Emotion number 3 is anger. This was actually a little bit harder than I originally thought to choose books for. So when I don't like books, it's usually because they're boring. So books that make me angry are usually books that I've had to read for a class. The first book is Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. Like, oh my god, this book made me so mad. I had to read it for a school project because we chose it for a group. So a group of 5 of us had to choose a book to read, and we chose it because it was supposed to be the happy medium for everybody. It wasn't. Not only is it kind of boring, but every single female character in the book cheats on her husband. Every single one. Whether she's hero or villain, she's always married and she is not faithful. Why is every single woman in this book sneaking around behind her husband's back, lying to people? And even when she's supposed to be the good guy and she's in a love story, the protagonists, she's still cheating on a man to be with that protagonist, and they have to sleep around. And then there's that whole conflicts that you get in those stupid rom-coms about like, oh, this guy's really right for her, but there's a problem because she's with this fiance. Like, no, that's bullshit. And I don't understand why all of the guys are perfectly faithful to everybody and they refuse to even think about going out of that way, but the women always cheat. The other book in my anger category is The Heavenly Twins. It's about a singer who falls in love with a woman but also becomes best friends with a boy. The boy is the woman's twin brother, heavenly twins, right? He's going to use the boy to get to the woman to, you know, have sex with her. Except for at the end of the story, he finds out that the twins don't exist. They're the same person. So what does he do? He's like, well, I guess I can still have sex with the girl. I guess so. And just won't understand why the woman doesn't want to have sex with him. She's portrayed as the villain for not having sex with this man. This book is considered one of the greatest feminist writings of the 19th century. And it literally blames a woman for not having sex with a man at the end. We don't owe you sex. Emotion number 4 is fear. So the first example is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And I have to admit that this actually started with The Prisoner of Azkaban, but it really scared me when we got to Deathly Hallows. And that's because I couldn't read this book at night because every time I would lie down to sleep, I would think that there was a Dementor standing over my bed. The Dementors scared me so much. And don't get me wrong, I love Harry Potter. Like, I really love Harry Potter, but for some reason it was the Deathly Hallows that like gave me this paranoia and these stupid Dementor dreams, like, ugh. And the second book in this is because it kind of had this really weird atmosphere I never experienced before, and every time I opened the book, I would kind of get like, my heart would start racing. It was one of the first thrillers I ever read, and that was The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. And The Da Vinci Code, I really enjoy. I'm not gonna lie about that. Do I acknowledge that it's not particularly factual? Yeah, still a fun read though. There was something weird about how every time I opened this book, I would just feel it. I'd never read a book with an atmosphere before, and it was such a strange thing to read. It was fun though. And for my final emotions, like I said, I'm gonna split this up into 2. So first emotion is disgust. And now rather than finding a book that I am disgusted with, I decided to find a book that's actually disgusting. And I don't remember the full name. So this book is Captain Underpants and the one with the bionic bugger boy. It's a 2-part Captain Underpants book. Now I loved Captain Underpants as a kid, and I used to read Captain Underpants before bed when I was scared at night because they would help me sleep because they were just so silly. So if I got scared of the Dementors standing over my bed, I had to stop reading after the bionic bugger boy books because they were just too gross. I'd read them and I would gag. It was disgusting. And finally, the last weird emotion is anxiety. I decided to choose this emotion because this happened very recently to me, and it started when I was actually writing my own manuscript. I was writing a character's anxiety attack the way I feel anxiety attacks, which ended up causing problems because when I went back and edited that scene, because I wrote exactly how I experienced it, I started getting it again. But I recently read Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, and the main character, her anxiety is not by any circumstances caused by the same things that mine is. Everyone's anxiety is portrayed in a different way, but the way he wrote her anxiety attacks were so relatable. I found myself getting really worked up when I was reading it. It was so real from the perspective of someone who experiences that, and it was really well written, but also like I was getting really worked up. So that's my 10 most emotional books. Obviously there are a lot that I left off this list, books that have made me emotional in some way or another, but I thought that 2 getting to 10 was a nice, lovely round number. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you liked this video. If you did, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. And I've linked all of my social medias down below, so be sure to check those out, send me a message, do whatever you want. Let's be friends. I don't know. Thank you again so much for watching, and I post new videos on Thursdays. See you next week. Bye-bye.